Hey guys, how's it going? It was brought to my attention that the lesson from class today did not actually record, which is unfortunate. So I'm just gonna try and run through some of the same basic stuff that I showed in class, just so that if you weren't in class, I know there was someone who was out sick, so this might be helpful for them, as well as jogging the memory of anyone who wants to kind of just look back on things. We only have so much time in class, so sometimes I feel like I have to rush through things. So first and foremost, do not be intimidated by this project. It is literally just combining the first two major projects you've had together already. All of the translation and combining things from your demo reel intro project, as well as a lot of the rotoing and grading from the element matching project. So it's really just a combination of things that you've already learned up to this point, just in a new and funky way. So yeah, your project is you're going to be compositing for CG animation. I've emailed you the Google Drive links to download. Should be the two composites you're going to need to do. Yep, Brutal K 1 and 2. They'll look something like this. Just all the different layers. We went over in class why we work in image sequences as opposed to working with video files. That never mind any crazy noises you hear in the background. The apartment's falling down. It's fine. Anyway, back on track. Okay, so I'm going to run through really quickly my process when it comes to comping for CG animation. Just know that a lot of it is just troubleshooting. That's what it comes down to. So, sorry, my example shot, the composite ended up looking something like this. Cool. First thing, I'm just going to run through really quickly how I made this image and what the components were, and then I will build another example image from the ground up just to show you my basic workflow when dealing with this kind of stuff. So first off, we've got our layers. So we have a background, we have our star layers, we've got diffuse on the ship, we've got occlusion, we have a rudimentary lighting pass, then we have a couple different engine emission passes almost. So the first thing I did was I took this background pass and I just graded it, made it a little dark, more contrasty, so it's a bit more like space. And then for the stars, I just put a glow node on them, just to kind of give them a little pop. And then used a screen, a merge screen, so just a merge mode set to screen. The reason I did this is because this is from a very old short film that I did, and my technique was not great. I was using Mental Ray at the time, and render layers on Mental Ray were a little bit not as good as they are in Arnold right now. So progress, but unfortunately that means that I have to do goofy things sometimes. Like if we just set this to over, then you see a black holdout map where the ship is. And what screen does is it essentially says anything that's pure black in the frame, it's just going to discount that and only show the light bits. So sometimes screen is very helpful. If you've got a lot of darkness, you want to not show up. So I've got the stars screened over the background. Over here, I've got my diffuse layer and my occlusion layer, and then I use the multiply function in a merge node to merge them over top of each other. So we can see that. I set my merge mode mix to 80%, so you can see at full, I thought it was a little bit too dark in some of these areas, so I just set that down to 80. Obviously, you can adjust that to taste. For my lighting pass, I set that to overlay. I chose overlay because it's just the one that I thought looked the best. You can play. There's just a billion different ways you could combine them. I set this to 90% because I was getting some really weird artifacts at full power. So just set this to 0.9. And then I just did a little grade on top of everything just to kind of give it a little more shape, give it a little more form. Just some minor changes here with the gamma and the offset and all that jazz. Actually, no, the multiply. Then I just merged over the ship onto the stars. Next, we'll tackle the emissions bits. So this is kind of an ugly shape, and I didn't like it very much. I also didn't like the color and brightness of it, so I popped that up with a grade node, blurred the living jeebs out of it, and screened that over top of this guy. The screen is set to about 70%. Same with this, but this outer rim, I felt like I wanted it to be more felt than seen, just sort of like space was reacting to the engines turning on, as opposed to physically seeing something hard like this. So you see, I use it in two different ways. Here. The first way is I grade it so it's a nice hot pink, blur the crap out of it, and then set it to color dodge over the top of the background. And the merge color dodge function over a very dark background just kind of pops it up and gives it a nice little glow. Then additionally, I put another grade on it, blurred that fellow, and then merged it at like 0.015, just so it's very lightly in there. Over top of all of this, I did a grade just to kind of so it reads a little better, reads a little quicker. Gave it some lens distortion, something fun to play with if you want to emulate sort of a glass lens look. And then I popped a little grain up on that sucker. Doot, 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 doot. And there we go. There's our shot. So, yep. So that's the basics of running through this. Now I'm just going to open a fresh Natron and show you how to sort of approach it from the ground up. So let's say you're just getting started and maybe this looks a little complicated to you. How can you approach this in maybe a bit less of an intimidating way? So let me kill this and I'll open a new script. Yeah, go away. Okay, which will I use? Just for the sake of turbo lulls, I think I used this one in class. Oh, you know what? Never mind. I guess I'll do the same one I used in class. So one thing that's cool about image sequences in Natron and in Nuke as well, you can read them in by creating a read node or just pressing the R key and reading it in that way. So you see when you've navigated to the correct place, it'll have the name, the number of the frames. So since it's a sequence, those are just numbered out, and then how many frames. So we've got 0 to 495 here. I'm not going to do that because I'm lazy. There is kind of a weird thing, I'll show you in a sec, but if you have a folder and the folder just contains the image sequence you need, then you can literally just drag that sucker into Natron and it'll recognize it as an image sequence and read it right away. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so yeah, it also generates these one-off -1 nodes. I just delete those; they don't help anything. So here's our real background. You know, this is our real image sequence. And then over here, it's a weird -1 node. Let's see. So I'll just weed those out. Okay. Okay, is that everybody? I think it is. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is just take stock. You see exactly what are these sequences and what could I use them for. So this is the background. Obviously that'll go furthest back, so I'll put that all the way on the left. Then we've got some like matte sort of BG ice cream clouds, you know, as you do. And then some of these hot pink pillars, it looks like it needs to be pre-multed. Gross. So I'll just put these in the background here because I think these are more background elements. This is our diffuse, so I'll put that here. So this will be more of mid-ground. We've got our occlusion here, so I'll put that in the mid-ground as well. Same with our lighting pass and our specula pass. And then over here we've got just like kind of a fog that'll go over top of everything. So I'll separate these into different categories. And then if I want to further organize my workflow, what I'll do is I'll select a series of nodes, press tab, and type in backdrop, throw down a backdrop. So we'll just say this is the BG sequence. To make this and then this is our mid-ground sequence. Okay. And the benefit of working this way is that if you've built it yourself and you have these big blocks of color, immediately looking at it, you know what they mean. And when you drop back into the script after, not doing it for a while, it'll help you pick right up where you left off, and that's always valuable. Okay, so let's focus on the background first. We're just going to do some real basic overs. Our first goal is to just combine these things in the most basic ways. Don't worry so much about grading. We'll do that later. We just want to get everything playing nice and in the same world. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, we've just got to do the broad strokes. So we've got our background. We've got these mountainy things. The alpha on this is pretty garbage, so I'll deal with that later. But we'll make a mental note that this is garbage and we need to work with it. Oh, okay. So in Nuke, if you select two nodes and then press M, it'll create a merge already attached to those two. But this isn't Nuke, so that's not going to happen. So we'll just A over B here. Oh my gosh. My finger isn't working. Let me switch to my Wacom. There we go. Much better. Nope, still as bad. Just as bad. Okay. Cool. It's one of those days, guys. This is one of those days. Okay, so we merged that right over. We can see my... once again, we've run into the plague of the nasty holdout mats. This actually shouldn't be too much of an issue right now. It will be later on, I'm sure. Then we will just merge the next element right over top of that. Okay, now see, this is a problem. So we'll just set this merge to screen. Cool, okay, disaster averted for now. And so that's our background sorted. Next, we'll just work on our midground. So we've got our diffuse, we have our occlusion. So what I'll do is I will just multiply this occlusion over top of the, not this again. Oh my god. Multiply this over that. Okay, over, multiply. Yeah, mask that. There we go. Oh. Well, the mask isn't really doing what I wanted it to. Okay, we'll deal with that later. We will deal with that later. Maybe it's working. Oh, it is working. I'm an idiot. Okay, so, sorry. What I did was I turned on mask, and I plugged the mask into the occlusion pass as well. One thing that I was struggling with earlier is that the occlusion pass does not include the rainbow, which this does, and unfortunately that means if we multiply this over that, it's gonna just cancel out our delightful little rainbow fellow. So, since I plugged the mask into this guy, what it's saying is only apply the multiplication of this element to this mask. So it is not applying it to the bits of the mask that this guy has. So we're not applying over the glow, we're not applying over this. So cool, awesome. So yeah, just multiply your occlusion over top of your background here, and then, it gets a little crappy in the trees, so we'll just eke that back a little bit on our merge, so we have something that's still pleasing and form-giving, but not overpowering. It's still a little dirty, and we can mess with that later, I guess. Cool. So now we've got some form worked into that. Let's tackle our lighting next. So we'll go ahead and merge the lighting over top of all this jazz, and we'll you can literally choose any of these, just mess with these, see what works for you. There are so many different ways we can approach this. I'll you know, this time I'll try average, or do they have geometric? No, geometric's gross. We'll try average. Sometimes I set it to overlay, sometimes I don't. We'll see. We'll also try the mask thing on this, so I'll plug the mask in here, and that is actually like totally not working at all. So, or is it? No. It's not. Okay, come on. Okay, I'm gonna turn that on off. All right, so yeah, we'll just do it that way. So we've got the nice detail, we've got some of the form into it. We'll just pretend that it's not clamping out here and that it's not sort of dampening that down. We can bring that back later. And then we have our specular fellow. So we'll A over B here. Okay, cool. And then for this one, I'll probably just screen it. Blop. So we get some of this nice, some of these nice details in here. So cool. Then is it too harsh? Yeah, I think it's fine. Okay, so next thing is we'll put our backdrop over top of our, actually let me make these quite long because we're gonna have to do all kinds of grading before we merge stuff in some cases. So I just want to give myself room for that. So put these down here. Cool. And then we'll merge our midground over top of our background. Okay. If I hold down Control, these little yellow dots pop up. I can grab those and just drag them around to kind of make things a little less poorly laid out. I hate angled lines, so yeah. Okay, so this is just slapping the midground over the background. It doesn't work. Don't worry about that. We will make that work at a later time. And we'll do the same thing for our foreground fog here. So we'll just put this over top of the middle ground and background. And look at that. Wow, it doesn't work at all. We will screen it. Pop screen. Cool. Okay, so now that we have everything just kind of laid out, you know, really rough and simple, now we've got to sort of leverage all of this using our grading skills to be in the same world and play nicely, right? So the first thing that's popping out to me is that the background matte elements are not really matching our foreground elements at all. So we'll do some grading on these guys first and foremost. So like I taught you, first thing you'll do is unpremult this image. That's gonna show us all of the pixel space, so that way when we grade it and then premult it again, the fall off of the edge doesn't hopefully doesn't turn black and nasty, or yeah, it's just the safe way to work. Okay, put a grade there. Then we will premult that on in. Cool. Now let's grade these puppies. So the first thing I'll do is take the black point and plop, click the eyedropper, Control Shift, click and drag in the dark area. Okay, we've matched our darks. The whites, eyedropper, Control, click and drag. Well, that is not at all what I expected, but I guess we matched our whites. Okay, so well, you know, that's the procedural one. Now we'll put down another grade node. And then I'll do it by eye. That can be a little more helpful sometimes. You know, I think maybe the problem is that it's just really saturated. So let's see if bleeding a bit of that saturation out with the saturation node can help us a little. So maybe we'll just take this down to 0.85. I think that might be helping a bit. And then I'll put another grade node down and try and just kind of move it around by hand until I feel like it's living a bit closer to that world. And since it's in the background, it is going to be a little lighter atmospheric perspective and all that. So I think, you know, for now, for this quick tutorial, this is a huge improvement. So cool. I'm happy enough with that for now. And next thing I want to do is how are these guys reading? Okay, I think these are good enough for government work. Whatever. Okay, cool. Moving on. Next thing I want to do is I could address my okay, so right now the big things that are sticking out to me are that the leaves are looking clampy and weird, and I want to find a way to isolate this rainbow and just really make that pop, and I'm not seeing that right now. Also, this foreground fog is just ugly as sin, and I need a way of dealing with that. So what I will do with this foreground fog, because that's probably the easiest to deal with, is I'll just put a blur on it. Right, okay. And I'll just crank it till it looks okay. So maybe like a 6. What do you think? Sure, why not? Cool. So we got that there, and this is just so ugly. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? It just looks bad. Okay, so let's do some kung fu to try and isolate the alpha of this guy so we can grade this independently, shall we? The only place that I'm seeing this element show up is in our diffuse. So yeah, it's not showing up. It's not showing up in our occlusion. It's not showing up in our lighting. It's not showing up in our specular. So which one is the most similar? I think this one's pretty similar. Okay, so what I can do is I'll make no, I won't. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to turn this alpha inside out, right? So that the white is black and the black is white. And then I can multiply it by this alpha to just isolate this guy right here. It sounds complicated, but it's not that bad. So the first thing I'll do is just throw down an invert, whoa, hello caps lock, an invert node. So we've got that here. I'll put the source down, okay? Cool, so now we have the opposite of this alpha. Just a reminder, you can see what the alpha is by clicking in the viewport and pressing A. You can also look at the color channels, once again, by pressing R for the red, G for the green, B for the blue. So, yep, that's how I'm doing that. Cool, so we have the opposite of this, and then we'll just use a merge node to merge this over that. Biggest problem with the merge node here is that innately, it's... Oh, you know what? No, that is not the problem with the merge node. The merge node is fine. I lied. So we'll just multiply this bonk over that. We're getting just some real great artifacts that are kind of nasty. So I'll put an erode node after the invert, just to clamp down on some of this shabazz. It's really not doing the trick. Let's try this. Okay, so another thing we can do. Okay, so I put an erode node on it. It's not working out perfectly, to be honest. I'm just gonna change this to alpha as well, just so we are only eroding the alpha. Okay, and I'll just use a grade node. Okay, grade nodes are good for everything. So I'll put down a grade node and put this after the erode, and in the grade node, I'll uncheck RGB and check A, so I'm only grading this alpha. And I'll just kind of clamp everything so we only get this guy left over. So I'll just gamma down, and take the white, no, take the black down Oh, you know what? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Unpremult all this jazz. We'll throw down a grade, plop, and then we will premult. Cool. And this grade, we will tie the mask directly to this new mask. Sorry, this new alpha that we made. Huh. Come on, friend. Sorry, guys, it's been a long day. Okay. Just get this a little cleaner. Okay. Okay, so now anything I do to this should, by and large, only affect the rainbow and all the glow stuff I accidentally picked up along the way. So if I want this to be like a little brighter, pop it up. Oh, look at that! Ain't that nice? Ain't that nice? So beautiful, so pleasing. And then also let's pop that saturation here. So I'll tie the mask to the same point. So we are black, 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 only affecting that. Cool. I'll bring that up to like maybe 1.5. And yeah, so you can make your masks using sort of that method, screwing around with the alphas and identifying exactly what you want. Or, of course, you can always use rotos to mask off certain areas, but the idea is you're going to want to control each and every element to get it looking exactly the way that you want it to, so that there are no nasty surprises when you decide to hit render. Another fun thing we can do is just give a little bloomy bloom to everything. So you know how much I love light bloom, so we're going to do a little wrapping, and I'll show you. I've seen a lot of people's projects kind of misunderstand how to use this. So first, we attach it to the element we want the wrap to be on. Then we attach the B to what is behind the element, right? So this way, when we up the intensity on the light wrap, it's able to pull what's behind it over top of it. As opposed to kind of just, I don't know what, a lot of people just didn't plug the background in, so I don't know how useful it would be in that circumstance. But yeah, I really want these to feel kind of nestled into the background a bit, so I'll just haze them up a little bit using this. Gross, 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 gross. Cool. So if I turn this off and then on again, you can see we got a nice little wrap going on there. And because these like burnt out areas are kind of bothering me a little bit, I'll just put like a glow at the over top of everything. So at the end I'll put a glow node. It's easy for these to be real obnoxious. I mean, look what happened right away. But let's... actually, I don't really want to isolate the highlights. I want it to go everywhere. And I want it to be... Come on. I want it to be large. I want a lot of glow. I don't know what this does. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the gamma. We want to raise the gamma. We want to raise the saturation. No, I lied. I want to take that saturation down. Take it down. No more of that. That's too much. What are you doing? Let's preview that. So that's what our glow looks like. Okay. So let's keep it kicked up to about that hot. Then yeah, I guess we can take it down a little bit. Ugh. So yeah, let's do the isolate highlights. I'm sorry, I was wrong. This seems to just make it more. Oh, I see. Okay, so this makes it more specific. This makes it less specific. Whatevs. Okay. Okay. Alright, cool, so we did the glow. It's awful. That's awful. No, that's bad and I don't like it. I'm just gonna grade it. I'll just put a grade down. Okay. So I want to kick the white up just a little bit, because it's already clamping out over there. I just want to kind of disguise that, even though it's dirty. Sorry. Black point, we'll take this up a little bit as well. And then we'll just reintroduce a little contrast with some gamma. For our black point, we'll make this like a teal color. Cool, and then for our white point, we'll make it like a warm color. Cool. And then I like to work too far, so obviously I have gone too far with my over Instagramming of it. So we'll go back to the original, see, and then just dial it until it feels all right. Cool. So 0.15. All right. And of course, I'm only doing this on one frame. Like, you've got a whole sequence to worry about, full of all kinds of crazy issues. But I'm just working on this one frame. You, of course, have 2 entire sequences to do. Yeah, let's go ahead and maybe put some lens distortion on this. I want this to be like, almost like a bubbly fisheye type lens. So we'll work it towards that. Yeah. And then of course I'll use a transform, just really nasty, but pop this back up into frame. Maybe that a little bit. Cool. Add some grain, add some film grain. This is far too much film grain. Just change it to one of these. Change the seed, and in the mix, dial this down to something a little lighter. So maybe 0.4. Cool. And then, because we've got some stuff in our bounding box and Natron, has all kinds of trouble when it comes to remembering what format it's supposed to be. Oh, you know what? I transformed it down too far. We're getting the top of the frame here. So let me bump that back up a bit. There we go. So we'll just throw a crop at the bottom. Crop that to format. Change the format to your output. Throw a reformat on there because I'm paranoid. You know how it is. Okay. All right. Let's just pretend this looks good, and then we'll write it out. So there you go. There's my workflow anyway. Honestly, if I were actually working up this shot, I'd spend a lot more time on it. I'd want to, I don't know, this is a display glitch on Natron. I don't know why it's doing that. I would want to work up the elements on a much more individual basis and get the whole thing working so much better. This area in particular is looking terrible. Another thing I'd want to do is, this tree is just god-awful. I'd find a way to separate it and then maybe defocus it because it's in the foreground, so I can get away with that. This tree needs probably the most love out of anything here, followed by the background. I'd probably defocus all this, and that's really easy to do because it's the background. So I can just throw a blur on there. Doop, 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 doop. Why are you not letting me do that? Okay, you know what? Haha, joke's on you. I'll do it anyway. What? Oh, such a rabble. Who could have foreseen this? Alright, sure. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Wow, amazing. So cinematic. Yeah, so there's a lot that can still be done with this, and there is a lot I expect of you. But I fully expect to see some awesome comps. I want to see you really elevate the elements you're given into something that is cinematic and looks good enough to hit the big screen. So yeah, any questions, comments, hit me up at my email. If you're, of course, how this will be submitted is going to be a little different than the other assignments. You're going to be also submitting your Natron script. Please do not submit your layers. I already have access to these layers, and they're, you know, they're quite large. They take up a lot of space. So I just want your Natron scripts for both sequences, and I want your rendered MP4 or MOV or AVI, whatever you can get to render, files as well. So it'll be those things specifically. So and the reason I want your scripts is because everyone's going to approach this a little differently, and I'm kind of fascinated to see how you approach some of the inherent difficulties with these shots. So that'll be cool. Yep. Bye.